Have you ever seen a buck with a unicorn tine in a hunting game? Yeah, me neither. And that's just one reason I think this game is awesome. Now, I know what it looks like, but I promise there's more to it than meets the eye, so give me like 2 minutes to prove that the season delivers extremely impressive detail, much of which is the first I've ever seen in a hunting game, even with an art style that harkens back to the likes of Deer Hunter 2005. So the premise of this game is to pass through entire hunting seasons with changing weather, deer behavior, and, as the name implies, seasons. One of my favorite aspects is the rut, during which deer are much more likely to respond to calls, and you'll also see bucks nose to the ground trying to find hot does. And yeah, the animation looks kind of funny, but if you've literally ever seen a buck follow a hot does trail in real life, you recognize this immediately as that. Another thing I absolutely love as the seasons change is how deer herd up during the late season. You go from seeing solo bucks and does with occasional doe groups in the summer and fall, to herds of deer in the winter. And these things aren't laid out anywhere, by the way, you just discover them as you go. And when it dawned on me that it wasn't luck that I found this group of bucks that resulted in my first bow buck in-game, but actually a mechanic that causes deer to herd up every winter, I was legitimately impressed. This game's playing experience causes that time and again for me. A sudden realization that something which appears to be random at first actually forms a pattern over in-game years, proving to be a true-to-life detail I just simply haven't encountered in other hunting games. On a more subtle level, check this out. Another buck I was able to get into range and take with the bow, which, side note, you see a bit of a mule kick there and a nice solid pop as the arrow impacts, but what shocked me as I walked up was, I found the arrow laying there, appearing to be broken off, but more importantly, blood-soaked. And I just couldn't believe this. I had to re-equip the bow and check, and sure enough, the arrows are camo, not red. It's a tiny detail, but it made me smile. Like, the game's got its flaws, and admittedly pretty janky UI, some weird animations, that hat, but stuff like this just has me completely enamored with it. 25 plus hours in, and I'm still stumbling into small details that just make all the difference. Also, you can plan a food plot anywhere you like, which will become a draw for deer all season long. You can place cell cams that notify you when a deer walks in front of them and provides essentially a live feed video as the deer remain in front of them, and then shows the final image of that video once the deer moved off. That is quite a rush when an albino shows up on camera, by the way. More on that later, but you can also place blinds, elevated or on the ground, over food plots, the existing fields, or wherever else you'd like them. There's a myriad of equipment you can earn to aid in your success, and when it's all said and done, you can haul your harvest back to the meat pool on the back of a four-wheeler. Which, by the way, probably is the worst model in the game. Like, really, I need a better looking four-wheeler for cooler screenshots, but that's beside the point. Also, there is a notable size difference in the deer. I'm not sure it affects anything other than immersion, but frankly, that's all I need it to affect. Plus, at the end of the season, you can even hunt for sheds, which as far as I can tell, end up as a sort of decor in your trophy lodge. And there's so much more than that, which, from here, I intend to dive into. If you're someone who needs hyper-realistic graphics in a game to become immersed, I don't think I can sway you here. But if the gameplay is more important than the graphics, then I personally think this game is worth a shot. It's $8 on Steam, and I honestly think that it's a much better playing experience that I can possibly deliver as a viewing experience. As much because of the hat and the clutter on screen as anything else. The immersion is so much better than I think you see on your screen when you're not actively playing. Those little details we touched on really matter. So from here, what I want to talk about is just the playing experience and what you can expect from the season. I do want to point out as well, now that I'm not up against a self-imposed timer, this isn't a sponsored video or anything. I just love this game, I've been playing the heck out of it, and quite frankly, I would love to see it succeed, be improved, and get even better. So with that out of the way, let's jump in here. So you start out with fairly limited XP, which basically is used as currency. You earn XP, you can spend XP, and you have your XP go back down. That's basically the currency system, as well as sort of an experience system. It allows you to purchase a weapon, some ammo, maybe a bit of gear depending on what you go for, and for me, I started out with a muzzleloader. No scope is a challenge, but some time at the range helped me to figure it out, and honestly, I will say I don't care for how you have to aim, but a few harvests will allow you to afford a scope, and life gets much easier from there. As I was still learning the game, I encountered this guy, which I think is actually the biggest possible wreck. Now, to be clear, one thing I want to see change in this game is the spawns. It's random spawns every session, and that's not a bad thing. I've been advocating for that in games for years, but the premise is to pass through hunting seasons. So I think random spawns on each map to persist for a full season would be cooler. And then your scouting days could actually be used to identify target bucks as well. But anyway, being completely new to the game and having harvested exactly 1 buck prior to this, I was so nervous to make this shot. Open sights, no ability to track a fleeing deer down, barely any idea how the game works. This had my adrenaline absolutely pumping. But fortunately, I had practiced at the range and I was able to make the shot. The drop tines, the stickers, and the unicorn tine that I only discovered on the meat pool had me hooked. It was from this moment on that I really got into the game. Now there is no true rags to steal that term from the hunter in this game, but there is a pretty wide array of potential antlers with quite a few options for variety. Split tines, half racks, mismatched racks, and more. But this particular one, scoring 230, seems to be the biggest, at least for now. I intend to make a video later, by the way, featuring some of the different trophy racks, but to get back on task. You earn XP with each harvest, with more XP earned for delivering the deer to the meat pool than if you kinda quick harvest them by pressing R standing next to them. You'll also earn XP for harvesting coyotes, and I realized that even they change with the seasons. A coyote shot in the early season has a kinda smooth, softer looking coat. Shoot one in the later season, and you'll see all sorts of scruff around the neck and more fur all over the body. Now, does it look great? No, it doesn't. I'll freely admit that. But again, it was one of those things that when I realized it, I just had to stop and appreciate it. Also, when you shoot a coyote with a bow, they actually react like they do in real life. Alright, hang on a minute. I did it off camera, and there was a really sweet animation where the coyote growled, whirled around, and kind of grabbed at the arrow before going down. But now I can't get it to happen again. I promise it's a thing though. I would call coyotes almost an afterthought in the game, but even they have some pretty cool levels of detail. Moving on through the season, you can buy a max of 2 buck tags and 6 doe tags, plus basically a license to harvest unlimited coyotes. Harvesting bucks earns fairly significant XP, while does earn much less. Coyotes actually are worth much more than does, as are sheds. At the end of the season, a quick shed hunt can earn you a ton of XP, plus it's also open coyote season. Now this is another place I'd like to see improvement. The sheds have nothing to do, as far as I can tell, with the deer that are actually on the map. So let's go back to the idea of persistent spawns for each season. I think the new spawn should start on the day shed season starts. That way, you could find sheds from bucks that you might want to target the next season, and that would make those days a lot more valuable as well. For now, I just basically buzz around on a 4-wheeler and try to earn that XP, but I really think that's another area this game could take a major next step. Now speaking of XP, best I can tell, harvesting an albino doesn't earn any more XP than if that deer was a common, but it sure is cool to see. Especially showing up in a food plot I had planted and seeing it first on the cell cam. It was such a cool experience. I will say, I think they need some degree of texturing on their models. They just look off, almost like a taxidermy form, but still, I'm thrilled the game has albinos, and really can't wait to take an albino buck. But for now, we've got an albino doe in the lodge. Now the lodge is kinda reminiscent of hunting games of the past. You don't choose which animals go where. Basically, you've got your coyotes, which once you harvest 3, that's kinda it for them. You can continue harvesting them, they still give you XP, but nothing changes in the lodge. By the way, albino coyotes, that would be pretty cool. But you've got the albino doe back there, with that slot seeming to be reserved for an albino. And there's the full body platform in the front, which just allows you to cycle through all your buck kills like many hunting games from 20 years ago. It does show the score, the age, and as you click through, you can see that notable size difference in the deer. And then finally, the shoulder mounts, which I believe are just reserved for 200 plus deer. I've gotten 4 so far, and every time we've gotten one that scores over 200, a new shoulder mount appears on the wall with that rack. I think that's how it works, and it's kinda cool, a quest to get 200-inch whitetail for the lodge. I could continue with every last detail, but I'll leave some things for those of you that want to give this game a shot to discover. Honestly, my hope for the season is for it to become something of this generation's Deer Hunter 2005. If I had to guess, it was probably the inspiration behind some of the things in this game to begin with. Right now, approaching the 30 hours played mark, I still look forward to going out to see what I can find next. I do think though, that we'll need to see a few minor changes to make it so you can spend hundreds of hours enjoying this game. So I've talked about a few of them already, and I think leaning into the season structure would let it stand out quite a bit from other games on the market. Continually adding more antlers to the game would make a big difference as well. I am still discovering racks that I haven't seen before, but definitely finding a few that I've seen a couple times now. In addition, piebald and melanistic deer could make for additional things to strive for. And honestly, following the Deer Hunter 2005 concept, other deer species would immediately add interest for me. Now, I do really think this game is meant to center around whitetails, and I like it for that, so I could go either way on that, but opening up each season to more opportunities of some kind, I think is key. Whether that's adding more buck tags that are state specific so you have to hunt the other maps, other smaller species like coyotes to chase as well, or something else. Also, I do have to mention the scale. This buck is about 50 yards away in game when I let the arrow fly. That's fine, shooting 50 isn't that hard, but visually it's just kinda confusing. It feels like it's at 25 to me, and I have no idea what changing that entails. I've gotten used to it by now, but it's still hard to visually judge without the rangefinder, and I do think that matters for immersion. Either way, to me, I feel like this game is really close. I enjoy it as it is, but a few changes and it could easily be a game I play on and off throughout the entire year. At the end of the day, that really is the entire point of this video. I enjoy this game, and I think a lot of you will too. If you found this game through this video and end up giving it a shot, let me know in the comments below. On that note, that's gonna do it for this video, so as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.